Indie Comic Book Guy. Today we're going to review Broken Down, Four Dead Bodies, issues 1 through 3 by Travis Gibb and J.W. Hey y'all, it's me, it's the Indie Comic Book Guy. Today we're going to review Broken Down, Four Dead Bodies by Travis Gibb and Felix Novara, issues 1 through 3. And the funny thing is, I had already completed a video reviewing these issues, and then my mailman came, and what do I have? Issues 1 and 2 autographed by Travis himself. So, Travis, definitely thank you for that. And I have the digital copy of issue 3, which I backed on Kickstarter. So, yay. So, let's just jump into it. Now, this is a crime story. Fans of books like 100 Bullets will definitely be at home with this title. It has grit, it has made men, it has gangsters, it has it all. So, if you like violence, you're going to love this series. If you like deep characterization, you're going to love this series. Now, it's not a perfect series. What is? But let's just dive into it. Now, when we first start off, we meet this gentleman. That is Mr. Washington. He's the big bad, so to speak, the crime boss. He runs into this street punk who's holding up a convenience store. And Mr. Washington's not fazed by this. He's like, look at my shadows right there. Let's do it this way. Mr. Washington's just like, really, kid? This is what you're doing today? And the kid, his name is Denver. He's like, yeah, this is what I'm doing today. Mr. Washington's like, whatever. Like, come on now. You're not going to get the drop on me. So, it's like a serious face down right here. And so, Denver, he's like looking at the clerk. He's like, yo, thought I told you to put the money in there. That's when Mr. Washington makes his move, gets the drop on the kid, and I hate that glare. Mr. Washington pretty much tells him, like, yo, you don't have to do this. Like, yeah, it's cool if you want to steal and rob, but you can do it on a higher level. And Denver's like, oh, I could be a made man. And Mr. Washington pretty much tells him, like, don't believe that stuff you see on TV. Come and see me, when you get serious. So all this happens in the past. So we get caught up today. And Denver's working for Mr. Washington. And Mr. Washington tells him, like, hey, I got a job for you. I want you to team up with this Randy guy. And Randy and Denver have a past. Dang, I sound like crap. It's my morning voice. So Denver's kind of like, I don't know. But I guess we'll see how this works out. So we cut to prison. Randy's getting out of prison. Randy meets up with Miguel. That's Randy. That's Miguel. And one of the things that kind of bothered me with this issue is later on Randy gets a haircut, and you have to really pay attention to him and Miguel because the way the artists draw them, they look very similar. So anyway, Randy gets out of jail. Miguel's like, you're out. And Miguel tells him, like, hey, I moved up in the organization. And this kind of surprises Randy. He's like, what? So they go see Mr. Washington. Mr. Washington's like, yo, I got a job for you. Randy's all like, but I just got out of jail. Like, I want to leave that life behind me. And Mr. Washington's not having that. It's like, yo, you're going to do this for me. So Randy's like, all right, guess I'm back in. So, a few days later, they meet up. It's a reunion of sorts with Randy, Miguel, and Denver. See, I forgot his name already. I need my coffee. So, they meet up. They got a job to do. At least Randy and Miguel does. Remember this car. Remember, it's called Four Dead Bodies for a reason, right? So, Miguel and Randy go. Miguel and Randy. Randy and Denver go on this mission. We fast forward to today. It's a lot of skipping between past events and current events, so definitely pay attention to that. But it's with good reason. I like this type of storytelling. It definitely serves a purpose of letting you into this world and letting you get to know these characters. So they're pushing this car. It's all shot up. They're complaining about how things just went south. Randy's kind of over it already. You know, it's like, Denver, we keep getting in these type of situations. I don't even know why I got back into this life. And now look, we got four dead monsters dead. The deal went south. And neither one of them are pleased with the events. So they try to reach Mr. Washington. That's a no-go. He's not picking up. So they're like, what is going on? What is going on? So go back to 3 hours earlier. Denver and Randy, they're meeting these mobsters, and there's an exchange. Or there's supposed to be. So, you know, they're like, hey, go get the case. It's in the car. And we've all seen this in every gangster movie. They're exchanging cases. It goes south. They're talking. It's like, here's the case. And it's like, what? There's no effing money in the effing case. We've seen this scenario in a million gangster movies. So, you know, people are going to die. And all Randy and Denver want to do is get the heck out of Dodge. So what happens next? Oh, they're good at what they do. They're very good at what they do. They kill them. So instead of just leaving the bodies there and just fleeing the scene, they decide put them in the trunk. It's kind of like Scarface. Like, yo, we'll get rid of the bodies. So that's what happens. They put the bodies in the trunk. They're driving around with them in the back seat, actually. I thought they put them in the trunk. Huh. So they had the bodies in the back seat, driving around town, still trying to get a hold of Mr. Washington. That's a no-go. And they're wondering, they're like, hey, you know, we been set up? Like, what's going on here? They go see Miguel. Miguel's like, yeah, you're in a real tight situation here. And all Miguel's concerned about is the case. And Denver's like, yo, with all due respect, we can't give it to you. And this is what set things in motion. Miguel's like, what? So, next, they kind of part their ways. And you'll see what I mean by part ways. Miguel's like, I'm not having that. I want that case. He calls his own goons in. Sorry about the glare. This is a cool shot right here. Miguel and his goons. Which, ironically, these goons don't seem to know Randy and Denver. At least they don't mention their names. So they're like, hey, we're being set up. What's going on? The goons just open fire. And they speed off. So, this is the situation you have right now. Miguel wants this case. The case that was empty. Randy and Denver have it. They can't get in touch with Mr. Washington for whatever reason. So they go on the run. So now they have four dead bodies. They have someone who apparently was their ally, but now it's like, no, I just want you dead too. You won't give me what I want. I gave you that chance. So it's not a personal matter with Miguel. Miguel's like, I just want this case. You won't give it to me, so you're dead. So they go on the run. They still have to get rid of these bodies, mind you. Glare. So they're just talking it over. Little fight, nothing big. So it ends with, of course, they're still fighting. Try to decide what should they do. Should they go to the cops? Should they try to reach Mr. Washington again? It's just a lot of just pent up frustrations just manifesting between these two gentlemen. But they don't want to kill each other because they know they need each other to get out of the situation. So, in the middle of the fight, this guy shows up with his tow truck. Like, hey, what seems to be the trouble? So that's how issue 1 ends. That's how issue 1 ends. I had this stuck on there. So issue 2, I love that cover. Picks up with a flashback. Now we get to know Randy's character a little bit. At the beginning of issue 1, we got to know Denver and his backstory. He's a stick-up kid. This time, Randy is in church. Mr. Washington happens to be in church, and they're passing the collection plate. Randy steals some of the checks from the collection plate and decides to go door to door and tell the people, hey, there's a problem with your check. I need you to write a new one. And he does to this sweet little grandma. But what happens is, that's the wrong sweet little grandma because that happens to be Mr. Washington's grandma. And he calls him out on his con. He's like, hey, I see what you're doing. I've been watching you. So instead of, beating the shit out of him or turning him over to the cops or whatever, or just killing him, he tells his grandma, like, yo, pay the man, write the check. So this says a lot about Mr. Washington's character. If he'll just betray his own grandma like that, it's like, wow, loyalty much, right? So he recruits him. We cut back to this scene, which is the end of last issue, and the guy with the tow truck is like, hey, y'all having car trouble, what can I do to help? That's when things go south. He notices the bodies. Denver kills him. So now we have 5 dead bodies. Cops show up a little bit later. He looks like every New York City cop and every NYC blue. NYC blue. What is it called? NYC, whatever the case. But he does look like every New York cop. Of course, they have to have the sexy partner who, they have their own going little flirtation thing. Well, not in this book, but on every TV show, that's what happens. But cops show up, they see these dead bodies, and they're like, yo, we gotta put a stop to this. So they're doing their investigation thing. And the thing about it, and we'll get back to that later, this is just one body that they find. So we'll get back to that a little later. Meanwhile, Miguel's meeting up with these gangsters and, he's preparing to cut a deal with them. And they make a deal. Hey, you're going to work for me now. Forget Mr. Washington. Let's do this on our own. And that's what happens. So we'll cut back to this scene. Now, the body from before isn't one of the ones that is in the car. Mind you that. Randy's not happy that Denver killed this guy with the tow truck, and they have a little back and forth. They're like, hey, let's see if we can still reach Mr. Washington. We need to get rid of these bodies, that type of thing. Meanwhile, this guy, and I love his character design. I like that tat on the face. Face tattoos are cool. He's going to come into play later. Remember, everybody's plotting against each other. So you have the street gang, you have the mobsters, you have Mr. Washington, his crew. You have Miguel. Everybody's plotting. They're like, where is Randy in Denver? Where's this case? Case is very important, but why? Meanwhile, they finally managed to get the car in the water full of dead bodies. That's it. That's the end of issue 2. So, what do y'all think so far? Broken down, now titled 5 Dead Bodies. So, broke and down 4 Dead Bodies, issues 1 through 3. Now, it's a 4-issue miniseries. And I'm just going to speed through issue 3 real quick, get a little backstory about Miguel. So apparently he kills this couple, and he goes to see Mr. Washington. Mr. Washington tells him, like, hey, I don't care how messy things get, I just want the job done. And it reveals to Miguel that all his employees, as he calls them, he keeps tabs on them, video surveillance, all that, and he puts all this information in a case. And his case number is 19. So, you get the connection with this case, why Miguel wants it. Now, what I don't get is Miguel's going through all this trouble for this case with this information about him in it. Mr. Washington apparently is not a dumb person. Why would you tell a person that all the information that you can blackmail them with is in this case, and they get the case, you can't blackmail them? So that's the part that's kind of a weak plot point that I'm hoping in issue 4 there's some kind of twist. And I heard from Travis, he said there is a twist, because I'm like, what's stopping Mr. Washington from making copies of this case, of this information on these people that work for him? So there has to be more going on, but they have one more issue, so hopefully there's a big reveal. But we know Miguel's motivation for trying to get this case. He doesn't want to be blackmailed anymore by Mr. Washington. So, cut back to Denver and Randy. They're like, okay, we got rid of that. Car's slowly going in the water. What now? Should we try to reach Mr. Washington? Is he working with Miguel? They're clueless. They don't know who to trust. They don't know who to go to. They don't know if they should go to the cops. They do not know what their next move should be other than getting the heck out of Dodge. So they're like, hey, let's get in this tow truck. Let's go. But before they do, Randy's like, hey, remember that case? Let's go get that. That seemed very important to Miguel. Let's get it. So he dives in the water, gets the case. And I like how, let's go back. Okay. Let's go back. The car is not that far from the shoreline. And it looks kind of stuck. I know it's slowly going in there, but on this panel, it seems like this car is deep, deep in the ocean. Randy really had to dive deep in the water to get it. But he manages to get the case. Like, he looks deep, deep underwater. Like, look at that. There's one fish? Come on, dude. I need more fish than that. So anyway, the psychos, they go see Mr. Washington. Apparently he has a secretary. So I don't know if Randy was trying to reach the secretary or Mr. Washington directly, but if you have a secretary, especially someone like that, and she has a bunny rabbit, why didn't you call her if you're trying to get to Mr. Washington and he's not answering his phone? That part I don't know. So they fill him in on what's going on, and they're like, yo, we took care of it. But did they really? So Randy's coming out of the water, and look what happened. Miguel's caught up with him. They have Denver. Fight happens. Don't you love these big epic fights? Miguel's like, I'm a badass with my gun and my boys. Now, he beats Randy like, just like boom, in the jaw, side of the face with a bat. That has to hurt. But I'm like, where did the bat come from? Because he didn't have it in this panel. He didn't have it here. Okay. So this guy gives it to him. Okay, I was wondering, I was like, where did the bat come from? Okay, so Randy's down. Cops are like, hey, we need to catch these two guys. We need Denver and Randy. And cops just sporadically pop up in this book. Where is that? She says, everyone, get to your squad cars. I've never heard a cop say that. And that was kind of funny. I was like, what? So they have Denver, like, on this tow truck, like, tied up. Like, this is a scene that's, I kind of felt a way about it because at first I didn't realize. I was like, what is he hanging on a tree? Like, this is some slavery type stuff. Like, they're going to lynch him. I didn't know what was going on there. So Randy is still just like, yo, I got a bat. I'm Batman. I'm just going to beat the mess out of everybody. So apparently Miguel, it's like beating everybody with this bat. So Randy's still alive. His jaw isn't broken. He's still able to talk, which I still don't get that. There's no superpowers in this story. So Miguel's about to kill him. Then Mr. Washington shows up. And that's how it ends. Broke and down 4 bodies. That's how issue 3 ends. So, quick note. I enjoyed this series. It was a fun read. I definitely get the vibe that Travis is displaying in this story. The art definitely fits the story. Now, the art isn't perfect. In fact, the artist he did a lot of line work. If you're looking for shadows, cross-hatching, any of that stuff, you're not going to get it here. The colorist, which I believe is J.W. Sims, yes, he saves this book. He saves it from just being a regular, just run-of-the-mill book in the arts department, to actually looking very stylish and, bringing these characters to life. Because if you see just the black and white images, you're not going to be pulled into this world without these colors because the artist ignored contrast, all that good stuff. He just did some line work. Now, I mentioned earlier that Randy and Miguel look very similar, and they did. Probably the blonde hair didn't help that they both had blonde hair. Maybe one of them should have had a darker shade of blonde, sandy blonde or something like that would have helped differentiate between the characters since facial wise they look very similar. I love the coloring on this book. The artist, his style did fit the book. Now, some of the panels did look a little crammed because the artist was trying to get a lot of action within these panels. Rule of thumb when you're writing comic books is to always consider what the artist has to draw in each one of these panels, especially if you're trying to fill that page up with multiple panels. Another rule of thumb is if you're doing action scenes, you don't need over 4 panels per page. The reason, going back to what I said a while ago, is the art can feel crammed. And the end result is the page suffers. And if the page suffers, the story can suffer a little bit. But definitely, consider that. Overall, story wise, the whole thing with the briefcase being the central plot and motivation behind Miguel's wanting to either replace Mr. Washington, take over his organization, or be his go to man, that seems kind of weak. So I am looking for a major plot twist that goes beyond, hey, this briefcase has all the information I have on you. If you get it back, I can't blackmail you, because there has to be more going on here, because that information can be copied, it can be duplicated. The cops, they show up sporadically. I really don't know where they're going with the cops in this story. Like I said, they got one more issue to tie a lot of these things together. The main characters, Randy and Denver, they seem clueless about all of this that's going on around them, which is cool. Which is cool. That's a good uh, use of story, because once these reveals are things are revealed to them, they may make a power play themselves. So we'll see. Rating. Overall rating for this story, I give it 7 stars. I said 7 stars. I give it a 7 out of 10, mainly because of some of the art choices, as far as trying to cram some of the action within these panels, as well as the whole plot device with the briefcase. I know you borrowed that from 100 Bullets, but keep in mind the way they utilized that briefcases in the story within 100 Bullets had a big it was a bigger narrative involved that had to do with government conspiracies, blah 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 blah. So let's see where this goes. I'm definitely interested in picking up the 4th issue, and hopefully this series continues after this. So that's my review. 7 out of 10. Good job. I will be around for the next issue. So I'm the indie comic book guy.